All right, Sean, I want to start today with something that has shown some serious staying power. There aren't many things that last more than 20 years these days, but apparently the TV show Grey's Anatomy is determined to prove that it can and it will. Not sure if you've ever watched this show, Sean. I used to be an avid watcher back in the day, but I think they lost me around season 8. They had a whole plane crash situation and I was out. But we've now actually made it through 22 seasons of Grey's Anatomy, and ABC, they intend to keep the party going. They've already renewed the show for season 23. They've got a spinoff in the works, and I was reading about this and thinking about the longevity of this show, Sean, from a retirement perspective, and it really shows us that sometimes doing the same thing over and over keeps working, and then on the other hand, sometimes it does not. So I'm wondering if you can talk to us about some things that you see retirees doing with their money that just are not as effective as they used to be. Can you speak to this, Sean?
Grey's Anatomy is still going.
It sure is.
It's
been going since I was in high school, I think.
Oh, my gosh. I haven't heard of Grey's Anatomy in so long, but that tells you my television watching experiences. Casey, this is a great concept to be talking about. I really like it. It's so easy for people to get kind of just comfortable and start feeling complacent in where they're at because they feel like things that have worked in the past will still continue to work more. They feel like they've got it. Mm-hmm. And that sometimes just isn't the case. And that happens from different perspectives. There's changes that happen. Sometimes they're the economic environment. If you think about the last decade or even maybe 2 decades, it used to be that we heard a 60-40 portfolio was the way to go, 60% stock and 40% bonds, and that has completely changed. If you're in a 60-40 type of a blend, or you're being recommended to be in that type of a blend, I think that it's probably not in your best interest at these times because the environment has changed with bonds. Our risk changes. Moving from working years to retirement years, that risk changes. Going from accumulation to distribution, that strategy is completely different. So what you're used to in working years is not going to be the same, and it's not going to work the same when you retire. Often, we just have the way we feel or personal changes. Thoughts about the way we see things could change. Good example there would be long-term care. So often when people first come in to meet with me, they think that their long-term care or their long-term health care strategy is going to be to rely on their kids. And as time goes on, maybe we have discussions about what that does, what caretaking does to somebody. Maybe they have started getting some experience in helping their own parents, and they start to recognize what that does, and they start to change how they think that they want to handle long-term care in the future and maybe not burden the kids so much. And so a lot of things are going to change. A lot of things have changed over the years, and a lot of things will continue to change in the future. I really try and impress on people to kind of get real intentional about a few concepts. I think it really helps. And one of those concepts is to try and really decide who you are and what you want out of retirement. Do you want to make it as great as it can possibly be? Or do you kind of just want to get by, feeling like that you think that it's all going to work out? Either way is fine. I mean, I'm not suggesting that one is right and one is wrong. I'm just suggesting to be intentional to make that decision. Your quality of life, you deserve that. You deserve to make that decision. Your family deserves for you to make that decision, and your quality of life is on the line. I'm really always trying to impress upon people to talk that out. Talk to your spouse. Ask how they feel about it. That's one of the least discussed concepts that there is when people come in here. And I will suggest too that not making that decision is making a decision to just get by. Procrastination is making that decision to kind of live that hope game and just feeling like it's all going to work out, but not really being sure.
Yeah.
But once you've talked that out, once you've kind of gone through that process of figuring out what you really want, I think it's time to commit to awareness. Commit to becoming aware. There's a lot of different elements that are going to come along with supporting that decision that you made to make it as great as you possibly can. And you want to know what that is. So many people, when they come into my office and they say, Sean, I don't know what I don't know. And I can't be having that in retirement. And so we've got to understand those different elements and things that we've got to be identifying. Some are going to be more important and some are going to be less important. But it's just so important to get that awareness. And a lot of people, they need to talk that out. They need to talk that out with somebody who knows what they're doing. And that all starts with a phone call. I encourage people, have a discussion with somebody. Come in and have a discussion with me, and we'll walk through what those different elements are and what those kind of things are that you need to be identifying. Recognizing that what we did through our working years is completely going to change when we go into our retirement years. The strategies, the priorities, it all changes significantly. I like to use the analogy, especially, when I'm teaching educational workshops at the colleges. I talk about, what is the goal of mountain climbing? And we know that the goal is to reach the top. But what's interesting about that is that 82% of all injuries and deaths happen on the way down. And so ask yourself, why is that? We put all of this time, we put all of this energy into strategizing, getting to the top and reaching to the goal. And we don't put any time and effort into figuring out how are we going to get down.
Yeah.
And if you think, and think about, Casey, think about the last, real steep hike you did. There's nothing the same about going up compared to coming down. It's all 100% different, right?
Right. It's a great point.
Yeah, the financial world is exactly the same. We put all of our energy to get to the top. In our financial world, most of us think about the top or the goal is retiring. I'll suggest that for most people, really, when you dig down, it's getting to that point to where you can decide if you need the paycheck or not. Whether you retire or not is not probably what's most important. It's getting to that point to where you get to if you decide you want to. And so understanding that getting to the top of that mountain, getting to the top of our financial mountain is going to be completely different than getting down. And we've got to put a lot of thought and strategy into getting there. Casey, you made a great point, and your question is, what's worked before versus what works now? People need help with discussing that, and again, I can't encourage you more. Talk that out with somebody that knows what they're doing. Give us a call and take advantage of the opportunity of coming in and having a discussion. There has been a lot of elements, a lot of things that's changed over the last decade or two, and they're going to continue to change. We talked about the current economic environment. We talked about how the use of bonds maybe are not in your best interest at this point, and there's alternatives. Understanding how an annuity can be an extraordinary bond replacement, serve the same purpose, and maybe get more value than being in a bond. Legislative risk. A lot of people don't think about the legislative risk, legislative policy, how that can change through the years and then change your strategy. We just had a major legislative change with the big beautiful bill. Right? It's a tax bill. And, I'm not getting political. Sometimes people want to get political when they talk about that bill. But look, I got to look at the facts. And for us, it's been a net difference maker in the amount of taxes that the families pay that we work for. And it's created a lot of opportunity to enhance Roth conversion strategies. So we're actually implementing more conversion strategies with more families. Maybe that before it wasn't going to be as beneficial, and now those benefits are just enhanced because of that change. A lot of times, our mindset is going to change. Often people will come into my office and they're all about the decision of, do I pay off the mortgage or do I keep it mortgaged? Bill and Jennifer just came in a few days ago, and it was a great conversation. Bill was really all about, keeping the mortgage keeping the mortgage, having that home mortgaged at 75%. He recognized the financial value, the math. He recognized the math. And Jennifer was, look, I just feel so much better about paying off the house. So the mindset can change through the years as well. But I'll tell you, Casey, what does not change, what never changes and what always stays the same is the value of the strong foundation of planning. Having a strong foundation in planning, understanding what your goal is. Look, how you reach the goal could change. Yes, with the environment, with legislative policy, with your mindset. But the goals don't change. What we're trying to accomplish, that lifestyle, what we're really trying to reach, typically isn't going to change.
Let me ask you this, Sean, because you just gave us, a little bit of an example with that couple that you've worked with. But is there a situation recently where you've helped somebody, or maybe you've helped a couple, really modernize their retirement plan and it really made a meaningful difference for them heading into retirement?
Yeah, actually, there's several. Let's see, Harry and Jane. They are just a really neat couple. They come to mind. They accidentally came across the radio show months ago.
Okay.
And they just started listening to it. There was some, there was some similar concepts being discussed in that show that we're discussing right now.
Okay.
And so that caught their attention. They listened for a few more weeks. They heard a lot of ideas and concepts that made a lot of sense. And so they came in, but, they thought they had it all figured out. Jane, she was used to paying the bills. Harry handled the investments. They had watched and helped their parents going through retirement. Of course, their parents had a pension, and they knew that that was a different situation for them. But they kind of agreed that having a plan done would be beneficial. And so then going through that process, going through our comprehensive planning process, they gained a lot of insight in different things that they didn't realize. Some things that they were able to really improve, some of those strategies, some of those things that they had felt like they had already got it figured out. They had it figured out, but there was some improvements made there. There were many ideas or many things that they hadn't thought of. Mm-hmm. And when we started to test, what could happen in the future? What are some hurdles? What are some potholes that could happen in the future that might derail the whole plan, might derail their retirement lifestyle? We identified some of those things and we implemented some strategies to mitigate those consequences. We've been working together now, over 6 months. We're now working with their kids, which I take that as a great honor, but also we're working with several of their friends and coworkers. And that conversation all started with a phone call. They heard us on the radio and they picked up the phone. A lot of times, Casey, people are trying to decide, and I get this a lot when people come into the workshops that I teach. Mm-hmm. Often they're really trying to determine whether they should be doing this on their own or if they should be kind of bringing in professional consultation. I am all about people doing it on their own if they have the characteristics to do it. And there's a lot to that. And you got to walk through that and decide on your own if that's the case. That's a family decision. I always want to make sure that we recognize that, it's going to affect our lifestyle. It's going to affect our quality of life, but it's also going to affect our family's quality of life, our spouse, our kids. And so, a lot of times people just need to be able to talk that out. Sometimes that's with just family members. Oftentimes, it's not a bad idea to just get with a financial consultant to walk through that discussion as well.
So if someone's listening to this conversation, Sean, and they're thinking, maybe my retirement plan is built on some of these outdated rules and concepts, or maybe they've been trying to DIY their retirement plan themselves and they're kind of double thinking now, like, they're second guessing, can I really do this on my own? What should those people be doing? What action should they be taking this week to, get to a better place when it comes to their retirement planning?
That's a really good one. I'm always suggesting that people get real with themselves. It's all about discipline, having the discipline to get the information that you should have. Know what you need to know. Have the discipline to keep up because it's changing constantly. And then ultimately, Casey, it's about having the discipline to not react emotionally. That's the biggest problem in this thing. Reacting emotionally can devastate retirement plans. If you're not sure about what your situation is, if you're not sure, if it's not your area of expertise, I urge you to get counsel on your individual situation. Look, it could mean the difference between thousands of dollars in spending throughout your lifetime and then into legacy. I invite you to give our office a call. We'll find a good time for you to come in or meet by Zoom. It's just a great opportunity for you to talk through your situation. We might have some recommendations you can use on your own, and then we can determine if there's something we can do to help put you in a better position. So give us a call right now. Our team is standing by, 559-847-0039.
And that's going to do it for us this week here on the show. But Sean and I will be back next week with more retirement insight for Fresno. But until then, Sean, handing it back over to you. Any final thoughts today?
That was a lot of fun. I always like going through these concepts. I just want to encourage everybody, keep coming back. You know, we care so much about your success, and we're going to keep bringing information to you that can help put you in a better position. It's hot outside. Try and keep it cool. Come back next week, and we'll talk to you then.